Welcome to the ABT Technology Channel. I'm Justin Kirsch, founder of Access Business Technologies. If you're an executive right now, you're probably feeling a lot of pressure around AI. You know you need to move. You see competitors talking about it, you hear board members asking about it, and at the same time, you also know that moving too fast can expose your business in ways you don't intend. We've actually seen this before. We've lived through it with the cloud. Companies that waited too long fell behind and couldn't compete. But companies that rushed in without really understanding what they were doing ended up less secure, not more, and spent years cleaning up security gaps, productivity issues, and operational messes they didn't expect. AI is the same thing, except it's happening faster and the stakes are higher. Today, I'm joined by Jim Connell. Jim isn't coming at this from a theoretical perspective. He served as CIO for a mortgage company processing over $1 billion a month at its peak. That means real data, real uptime requirements, real regulators, and real consequences if things went sideways. So when we talk about AI, security, and governance in this conversation, we're not talking about hypotheticals. We're talking about what actually works when you're operating at scale. If your business runs on Microsoft 365 and you're trying to figure out how to move forward with AI in a way that's practical, secure, and doesn't break how your organization operates, this conversation is for you. Jim, welcome.
Thank you.
Good to see you
Good
again.
to be here.
Thanks for being here. We're going to have some fun today and talk a little bit about AI. What I'm seeing, and I want to get some of your advice that you can give some of these executives, they're under tremendous pressure right now to start leveraging AI, not just to help them get more done with less, but to be super competitive because everybody's expecting AI is going to solve the world's problems. When you look at that, what are the risks that you see and what advice can you give about AI and how it works?
Well, the competitive threat is real for them. If they don't keep up with the turn times, with the cost of origination and lower that to what their competitors are seeing, they're not going to win that business. They could be out of business. And so it's very much on their minds. And so, what do they got to do to start this journey? First of all, they got to realize that AI is a great tool, but it's only as good as it's implemented. And so if you don't have a solid foundation to put that on, that tool, it's going to magnify problems potentially, as opposed to providing productivity. And so one of the first things they need to understand is do I have a foundation built up in my organization? And specifically, I'm thinking about data security, governance, and operational sort of security problems, as well as then the rollout of this through a pilot program, through adoption, and making sure a lot of people are resistant to change in an organization. We've done it this way as long as I've ever worked. You've been working here for 30 years. It's like, guess what? It's time for a change. But they hesitate to adopt unless there's leadership push behind it. And so they've got to look at the bigger picture and then decide what areas of their operations would benefit most from this. Like a lot of them are focused on back office operations for operational efficiencies, which is great. That's obviously a big area to reduce costs, especially with the cost of underwriting, the time delays involved. But there's also simpler ways to start taking smaller bites of adopting AI into your operations that will allow you to sort of get the process down, if you will, to get a flow going. How do I get this tool in? Is my governance up to speed? Do I have my users adopting to how to use these new tools?
Okay, so you said something about foundation. So when you talk about AI readiness and, hey, we want to do our first AI agent, what do you mean by I've got to have the right foundation? Why is that important? Who cares? Can I just go buy an agent from the web somewhere and have all my employees log into it and it starts answering questions and we're off to the races?
You could, and you could get yourself into a lot of trouble if that agent goes and draws answers from areas where he shouldn't be. For example, you're putting together tools and these AI agents that have the ability to work lightning speeds faster than we ever can.
Right.
And to crawl your entire network unless you've locked down areas of that network. So do you want them looking at your HR records, how much the CEO makes and what his bonuses were? Do you want one branch's information to be available to another branch's information?
An ungoverned AI agent that you just put out there and you handed a bunch of information might tell someone something you don't want them to know.
Exactly. And you can be in a world of hurt, not only within your organization, but one of the things about our industry is that you are privy to every intimate bit of the consumer's financial information. You got income statements, you got tax returns, you've got bank account information. And that is extremely valuable to hackers. And so if you don't have access points under control, if, for example, you haven't turned on multi-factor authentication, to control your access points because, some loan officers that we have, it's just too much trouble. I don't want to have to, go and put a code in. It slows me down. Well, sorry, that is now an access point that your computer gets hacked, Mr. Top Loan Officer, that, hey, we love you, but we've just allowed someone else to take control of your device, and now you have access in. But the bot can do that at 100 times faster than a human.
So we got to, though, give these loan officers what they need to be more efficient.
Yes.
And we got to do it in a way that's low friction so that they can get answers just like they're getting out of ChatGPT now, but following all the rules and the compliance regulations and making sure they get good, consistent answers that they're going to use.
That's right.
Okay.
Good, consistent answer. And they need these tools to be competitive. There's no doubt about it. And that's the rub. It's like we've got, as a CEO, you've got to embrace the change.
Yep.
But how do you do it smart? How do you do it safely? How do you do it smart so that you're not all of a sudden at risk of divulging information that was PII information that
Gotcha.
All of a sudden I've got a
So
regulatory
some loan officer
violation.
takes an application and pastes the whole thing into ChatGPT and starts asking questions about it. Then their personal ChatGPT account gets hacked, and now suddenly that hacker has every loan that they've been asking questions about in that ChatGPT session. And now the mortgage company's screwed because
they're responsible.
It happened on their computer, on their watch, and they've got no governance over it. So you're just saying, hey, use ChatGPT, fine, use whatever it is you want, but let's use it in the safe confines of a computer, a device that your IT department is monitoring and controlling.
That's right. So you've got tremendous amounts of data that are being processed, and, and these tools are able to grab information extremely fast. And they don't care or know what it is, what those boundaries are. So you could have all the good intentions you want, but if that information isn't in a secure tenancy somewhere, if it's not locked down and it can be accessed by others, then you could be in for a world of hurt. And so this is why auditors come in and they're looking for that sort of thing. They want to see your governance model. They want to make sure that you have regular practices in place to make sure that your data is secure. And it becomes more prominent now as you implement these tools because the data there's going to be richer data. It's going to be moved in more rapidly, either into, like in your example, I mean, potentially a loan officer goes off and starts using a rogue ChatGPT access. That's like, well, that data is now off somewhere where I don't even know, but I'm still responsible for it.
Gotcha.
And these are things you need to be aware of. If I can contain all that, hey, that's a great tool. Let me give you the ChatGPT or other tool that I'm using, and let me doing it.
Microsoft Copilot, whatever it is.
Exactly. And let me do it in my environment. That's where I know it's governed and it's safe.
Gotcha.
And I think that's probably one of the biggest risks right there with, especially mid-size smaller or mid-sized firms that I've seen over the years. When we went into the cloud, similar things. Oh, I gotta have the cloud.
That actually leads right to my next question.
Yeah.
It's like we've all seen this movie before, right?
It seems like it.
And companies were racing to get to the cloud mostly for efficiency, productivity reasons. And so talk to us about some of the parallels between the race to AI and the race to the cloud.
Yeah, this idea that, I've got to have the latest, greatest tech thing. I kind of understand it, but I kind of don't.
Yep.
But everyone's talking about it, and my competitors are doing it, so I better be doing it too.
Yep.
Which is, there's truth in that, but I better do it right. And if I don't do it right, I end up stumbling and causing myself more problems. And so a lot of times you're going to need, you're a bigger organization, you have a somewhat sophisticated IT staff who can walk you through this journey and set it up properly with governance. Or you're going for a consultant that can help you put it into place. And once you get the controls and all the policies set so that we know who's allowed in the door, when do they have access? What kind of information do they have access to? What happens when they leave the company? How do I make sure and follow up that those access points were turned off? Different tiers of access points for different types of levels of employees. All of these things that I need to be monitoring regularly with hopefully some sort of an executive dashboard that I can follow up and see, are we maintaining governance of our data, which is going to then allow me to build out now I have the access to all these other things. When the cloud, I have access to my information anywhere and everyone can access it. And it makes me more efficient. Same with AI, now I'm able to implement these tools so let's say maybe I'm an underwriter and I'm looking at a summary of a file and it's highlighting some of the areas I need to look at or the way credit should be and income should be analyzed. And so now all that information, I can use the tool, get the benefits, but I don't have to worry about, that information got put off thanks to AI and the way it crunched and moved information and accessed information and stored it. It got moved off into some sort of data repository that I don't even control, or that I don't have locked down, and it's subject to hackers. Or outside, or maybe it's an outside vendor that has all good intentions, but I'm not keeping up with that vendor's access controls and their own security controls. I'm responsible for that vendor. I better have governance in place that has vendor management, reviewing their policies, looking at SOC 2 audits for them. I need to show regulators these things. I need to be able to have all that in place. And so, those are a lot of hurdles that maybe the C-suite doesn't necessarily want to focus on, but they're realities and someone needs to be focusing on. And so if you're large enough and you have an IT department, you have a CIO, and you have maybe a CISO even, they're gonna focus on that. But if you're not, you're mid-size, and you're focused more on operations, you need a partner most likely that has that expertise. In our case, it was valuable to say, how can I make a consistent operation, uniformity standards? I remember when I came into an organization and it was like, hey, we're getting this new retail branch on. We're boarding them next week, and everyone's going to come. We'll just bring our whatever laptops we have. I've got an Apple. And then we're just going to continue using what we say. Because wait a second, we can't maintain any of this. We don't have any way to do this, and it was quite frankly turning into a mess. And then over time we changed that paradigm, and we got management to buy into the benefits of the change, to say, no, if we standardize it, we're going to pay for everyone to have a new computer, and it's going to be our computer with our policies enforced on it, and now we don't have to worry about the security problems that comes with unmanaged devices. When someone has a problem, let's say their computer got hacked or ransomed, they're frozen up, we can address it quickly. We can either fix it remotely, or we can ship them a new device.
Home computer, it doesn't really, you have no control, no insight over to what's happening.
Exactly.
And suddenly they're downloading all of this borrower information on it and uploading it. So it's the same story as the cloud.
Yeah.
And the cloud basically, when you race to the cloud and you don't configure it correctly, it's actually less secure than the computers running in your server room at your office.
Right. So
because at least they're protected physically, right? And
That's
not
right.
all of them have access to
right.
the internet.
That's right.
And now on the cloud, if you don't lock it down, and one of the things I think that I've seen is all the defaults in, say, for example, Microsoft 365, and there's thousands of these settings, and there are all these really cool controls that you can block somebody from logging in without getting a proper code. You can keep them from logging in from a different
Foreign country.
Yeah. You can set up how much data they can download, but most of these settings are not set by default, right?
Yeah.
So you get it, and by default, it's not very secure. It's probably more secure than it used to be, but it's not very secure. So it's not really ready for AI yet, right? And so what you're talking about is you need a feedback loop like what we do with Guardian Insights, which basically helps you set all the configurations so that you're secure, gives you a feedback loop and a report that an executive can look at and say, how many people do I have that don't have MFA set up? How many people are using ChatGPT with their personal login?
That's right.
What sort of computers are logging into my Microsoft 365 tenant that I don't have control over?
Right.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. Am I allowed to send these type of document attachments in an email?
Yeah.
And we can look at those types of attachments and go, oh no, that's not allowed.
Gotcha.
Or why are we sending?
But all of these rules, though, Jim, don't they slow down loan officers?
Well, it slows you down a lot more when your business is hacked and ransomed. But it shouldn't slow down loan officers.
If it's done right.
If it's done right, it should. And there's two things. It's doing it right. It's getting feedback, like you said, from the loan officer or from the compliance department or secondary market. It's like, hey, you locked down our ability to ship these large files out, but we have to send this, every week, to an investor, for example. It's like, okay, let's figure out how to dial that in a little finer. It's things like that.
Yeah.
But if it's all dialed in and working properly, you don't have to worry about your company being ransomed, because you've now improved your score of how secure I am.
Yep.
And that in the long run is going to win the day in terms of efficiencies. And not only that, it shouldn't be a burden on loan officers. I mean, we rolled out multi-factor authentication, and the idea of like putting in a code, and a lot of feedback. Oh my gosh, this just takes too much time to put in this extra code. That it's just inefficient. It's like. I was like, well, how about your bank account? Does your bank require you to? Yeah, sure it does. Do you feel good about that when you? I'm happy when my bank asks me. It makes me feel secure. It's like, don't you think our customers want that same thing? And by the way, how much time does that take? Because we put in a very slick process. Maybe there's slow processes, but there's like codes there in second. Punch it in. Or there's authentication processes to even trust my device, because I'm a known device. I don't even have to put the code in because I'm a known device to the network. I have that second factor of authentication, and boom, I'm on my way. So there's
you're
ways
saying
to dial it in.
You can dial it in. You can make it efficient, and on top of it, one more thing: if you set the right controls in place, you can actually lower friction that is already there and increase productivity. Because let's say, for example, you were having to sign in twice because you were using your personal computer.
That's right.
You had to sign in to your computer. Then you had to sign into Outlook. Then you had to sign into another website. And here's all these productivity slowdowns. But now with it secure, I sign in one time on my computer, and now I have access to
you have
everything.
single sign-on.
And so it's not just about security.
Tools.
It's about lowering the friction from productivity too.
We rolled out Teams, and at first it was a tremendous pushback. It's like, oh no, over here in marketing department we use something else. And Teams, but Jones down the street that I know, a friend of mine, is using something else. But once we got it out there, it was amazing. Within even a month, the feedback was so astonishing. And then as another month and another month went on, and we started demonstrating how we could control project meetings and interactions of people and sharing files. People ended up loving it. And so now you say, oh, I can take AI and integrate it into my teams, for example, and have this information at my fingertips. And I have a question, and I can just go right there and ask the AI agent.
Yeah, so you've got your AI agent right embedded into Teams.
And get my feedback like that. And that kind of thing.
Have a chat with it, and it's always there to answer your question about whatever.
And know that all of that information is in a secure tenancy.
Yes, yes.
You know,
and
not have
maybe
to worry about
even it has access to your LOS data, and you can ask questions about your loan pipeline.
That's right. And if I'm doing this correctly, I'm making the loan officer's life easier because everything's at their fingertips.
Okay.
And they don't have to worry about all that other stuff going on in the background.
So it's not just about security, it's about productivity.
Absolutely, yeah.
And lowering that friction and getting the configuration set up. But one of the big advantages is you want to keep from getting hacked at the same time you're implementing all this stuff, which happened with the cloud.
Yeah.
And so now AI is the same way.
Yeah.
It's really super parallel. And so can I use all these same security and lowering my friction rules and things like that if I bring the AI into Microsoft 365? Can I use the same
I think
rules?
it's you're asking the same question. Can I build this new wing on my house here?
Yep.
And the answer is, well, how's the foundation of your house?
There you go.
Is it built?
It's true. So true.
Is it ready to go? So now if you have those foundations in place and you have, I was going to say monthly governance, but it's daily, really.
Right.
But when I think of monthly,
the executive should be looking at reports.
I'm thinking at
every month saying,
that's right.
How many people don't have MFA turned on? How many administrators do I have? How many people are trying to email PII that shouldn't be?
Right.
You know, and you have somebody monitoring that stuff.
Yeah, daily you got an administrator, looking at that stuff, and they're following up too. They're curing things, and they come back monthly with reports. And we cured this many.
Yeah.
We still have outstanding this many.
Yep.
And I, so that's what I'm thinking of. If you've got all that set up in place, your foundation is strong then. And then you can go add on that extra room, that extra, building or suite or whatever it is. In terms of our discussion here, AI.
Yeah.
You can add those things on. You've already got the foundation built. And so now you can start taking rapid benefit of what AI has to offer.
So if you're not certain about your foundation, before you layer in AI, you better double check it. That's kind of what you're saying, right?
Well,
you better make sure those things are turned on.
Think of AI as a multiplier. I mean,
that's what I was going to say.
Look how fast. It always amazes me. I'll do a little query with Copilot or ChatGPT or something, and it spits out pages of information, summarizes it nicely. It's like, I can't there's no way I could ever type that fast. It's amazing what it can do.
Right.
It's multiplying the speed at which these things can get accomplished. But if you have problems, it's going to multiply the problems that rapidly.
So a good example of that is if you haven't set up your security with your files in your company, like your SharePoint files, or they used to be sitting on file servers, or your OneDrive, and people have access to things they shouldn't have. They may not have known they had access to that before AI, but now they've got an AI agent that you turned on, and suddenly they can say, who's the highest paid person in the company, right?
Yeah.
And it goes out and searches every Excel file, which happens to be accounting department, has one sitting there, and they didn't realize that this was available to anyone with no security, but nobody knew about it because they didn't know where to go. But the AI agent now comes back and tells you how much everybody's making. In the company.
Or I'm,
that's the multiplier you're talking about.
That's exactly right. And maybe HR is locked down, but maybe I'm a manager of my department and I asked for a spreadsheet, 2 months ago because I had to adjust salaries or look at bonuses and whatnot. And so I did my job and I got all the information. I saved a copy to my computer, which wasn't necessarily locked down. or wasn't restricted by policy to have
Gotcha.
someone else accessing it.
Yep.
And so now AI comes along and it searches and it finds the file name and it looks at it and it's like, oh, that's interesting.
I mean, we're seeing
Boom.
more and more stories like
Yeah.
that, and people don't realize they didn't have a good foundation because they didn't
Right.
take the time to secure the data, test everything out, and make sure that it's working. And so when you say AI is really the multiplier of that, it suddenly gives you reach you didn't have, not because you didn't have access to it, but because you didn't know what you didn't know. You didn't
That's
know
right.
it wasn't there.
Now I can-
and it can find everything.
Now, I used to have the skills to go out and
That's
search
right.
those files.
That's right.
And then
It
the
is
time to
about
kind of
the
look at
skills,
them
right?
and decide.
Yes.
And now I just ask a question
That's
in
right.
human form, just regular
That's right.
dialogue, and the
It
AI
is.
says, okay, is this what you're looking for? Yes,
That's
it
right.
is.
That's right.
Yeah.
When you think about it, what worries you most when executives say, we'll fix the governance later? Don't worry about it. We got this. We got to go right now.
Because you're generally going to get yourself mired down in problems
Right.
that are going to escalate and become regulatory problems, properly, licensing problems, things that usually end up not ever getting addressed is the problem with that. So I understand because I've heard that response before. Because everyone wants it. We need that feature immediately. This guy down the street, they're cutting their turn times by 6 days, and we need to compete with that.
Right.
I can't close deals because everyone knows that Jones down the street is faster than we are, are offering better rates or whatever. And so there's real urgency there, but you've got to be smart about how you approach it. You can't allow these problems to be magnified and get yourself into a deeper ditch.
But isn't it true, though, that if you're going to do an AI project, okay, and you have a good foundation,
yes,
your IT team now doesn't have to worry about putting all these blocks in rule by rule in this AI agent. Don't go after employee information. Don't go here. Don't do that, because it just can't by default, because you already have that, and you can only see what you can already see, right?
That's right.
Like, you can only see the loans that you're working on, not everybody's loans, because you laid a good foundation for that.
That's right.
You only have access to the files that you have access to. So then, from a productivity standpoint, you can stand up these AI agents way faster because your IT team's not trying to think of all the ways around it.
Right.
Your governance layer that you have in Microsoft 365 is already doing that for you, because you only have what you have access to, and it can't use what you don't have access to.
That's right. And not only that, this processor works for branches A, B, and C, but they got transferred and moved over, and now they work for XYZ. Did their access to ABC end? Or you have to have an ongoing, as people move, they're hired, fired, moved within, you need, that's a perfect example, because retail branches are always, not always, it depends on your organization, but they're typically set up, I want to see my loans, and you shouldn't be allowed to see anybody else's loans. But processors work for 2 or 3 different branches. Underwriters might work for entire regions. And do we get to see the Eastern, get to see the Western? Because sometimes there's overflow. We need their help. I mean, maybe the answer is yes to those things. But where do you draw the lines? Is it something that you can turn on and off as something changes, or certainly someone gets a promotion?
So you get the foundation, you can move faster, you're going to get a better result, and you're going to get security and productivity, not one without the other.
That's right.
Yeah, and so now let's go to what I'm seeing, and I kind of want your opinion on it. I'm seeing, you walk in, you talk to people, loan officers and other employees are stacking AI tools now. They run out and tell their manager, I saw this that did that, and I need it. Okay, buy the subscription to it, you got it. And then somebody else buys something else, and somebody else buys something else, and you have all these tools. It's the same story with IT of stacking productivity tools. These are no different. What are some of the downsides of doing that, and some of the pros to doing that?
Well, I guess in a warped way, a pro would be the fact that you're like reacting quickly and you're trying out different ideas, and then
you may have the latest thing that
see how it works,
shiny object
and
that
it
does
shines.
even better. Yeah.
But the bad side is you have no control over that, and it's probably not set up correctly, and you have no governance over that.
Okay.
So this department goes out and selects, Model A. This department goes out and selects Model B. You have no consistency.
Okay.
And I think that is one of the biggest needs in any larger organization. As you're scaling, you need consistency, and that might be good if you're just like a little mom and pop type of a shop, and you're trying out things rapidly to see what works. When you go through that phase, but you start scaling, and you're responsible for all of these people and for the security of all of that information, and you need controls over it.
Yeah.
And you need to know what tools are working. And so, for example, do I allow people to just install applications without any sort of approval on my computers? Hopefully the computers that now are registered and controlled and monitored. Have I put those policies into place, or do I allow people to just I went out and installed this, I heard someone tell me about it, or this vendor, I met these guys, and so I went ahead and installed this application. Is that permitted, or is that controlled? Is that monitored, or does it go through some sort of a review process with some levels of management, and maybe there's different layers of C-suite management, and maybe compliance is in it, maybe IT is in there, offering guidance on this is, okay, this is certainly a great tool. How do we implement it correctly?
Let's take it back to productivity again. Okay, so what I'm hearing from everything you're saying is there's a huge productivity loss in this, and here's, from my experience, I want to see if you've had this too. One of the biggest productivity losses is not just that IT people are having to work longer and more on onboarding and offboarding, because you've got to manage and make sure they have all the right accounts. You got to check the security. So onboarding a new employee, which we know there's a lot of turnover in the mortgage industry, is super slow. Offboarding, super slow. Security issues with that. But what about the actual people that you need to onboard to get to work? Right? You're losing productivity there too. But if you can standardize these tools, and not just stack them, the business can, you said, react faster to a changing thing that may get them more loans closed. For example, like rates have changed, we got to make a new offering. Now I don't have 5 tools to go update. I've just got one place to update it. So I'm going to originate more loans because of this.
That's right.
Security is like a side benefit. Productivity is a huge driver too if you do this right.
Right, and if you've proven in a pilot or in, we used to have like this branch over here, they're using the tools correctly. One example was income and asset verification, which is offered by the GSEs, and so they embraced it. We were rolling it out. They embraced it. And their closing times shrank significantly. And in the face of them having successes, others were still saying, no, we don't like that. We're not going to use it, or we always do it this way. We don't want to have to go back and ask for taxes and pay stubs. So we just ask for it all up front. And we, just in case. And so how do you get everyone, you've proven something works, and then to roll it out and get, because you can't scale otherwise. You
can't maintain it.
You have all these rogue people doing rogue processes, so it's not only,
it works for a little while and then it breaks down.
And these aren't IT things. Now you're talking about business process. And now you're getting into another realm of management. It's like, that's another area of responsibility and being strategic about scaling. And this is where I always, there's certain things I like to use as models, because people have a hard time thinking about virtual things where software is involved and things they can't get their hands on. But we use the example of the foundation of the house, and they can relate to that. The other thing they can relate to is good old Henry Ford and the assembly line. Instead of making the cars one at a time and things were really slow, all of a sudden we started mass producing them, and everyone knows, wow, that was a major milestone in the history of our country and the world. Like this really works. this idea of repeatable processes that are proven and then improved upon as you go forward. And then you can start doing that once you control the operations and you have standards that are enforceable. And you referenced earlier, there are thousands of adjustments and settings and configurations that are available within Microsoft tools, really all tools. They have so many, it's amazing, and they need to be. That's why they're flexible. You can make them do anything you want, or you can make them not do anything you want because they just sort of fall down there, never attended to. It's like a garden that's grown up with a lot of weeds in it. It's like, that's not a very productive garden. So so as you sow, so shall you reap. Right? That is sort of applies true in the industry. You've got, that's why that foundation, those processes, those business processes, standardizing allows you. Once you invest a little into getting all that, you can start springboarding in many different ways. It's not just, I put AI in. I've found new operational processes, and I use the example of utilizing tools and services available from the GSE. It's like, we use property inspection waivers wherever possible. We use income verification wherever possible, and it saves us this many days. Why wouldn't we want to do that? And there's exceptions where that's not going to work. Well, we have that carved out, and so then you can start specializing. How I don't know if your LOS is capable of subdividing. You set groups up to handle mainstream things and specialized services. And that's what that's where a lot of people are taking this now. So you have AI helping to underwrite files. The final decision is still needed by underwriter. That's regulatory requirement. But when you have it all laid out for you, you say, this is the way I analyze this person's income because, and here's the guidelines, and here's why, and the guy goes, that makes perfect sense. Check, 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 check. And by the way, here's the documentation right here, indexed and available to you, and the underwriter can look at it and go, yep, there it is, all right, check, check, check. Well, that just shaved hours off of my underwriting time, and now I've doubled my capacity, and the most expensive asset in my company is now working at twice the speed of what they used to be able to do. And everything's and then now it's repeatable. This guy did it over here. Why can't I get this guy to do the same thing? Maybe he's not the sharpest underwriter I have. Maybe this underwriter's always been a star. But now with these tools, and now I'm following along, and I can moving files to that, let's just call them junior underwriter. Well, these are the ones that are, you're familiar with, your knowledge. The tough ones will go over here still, but you'll get the ones that are easier until, over, say, a course of a year or whatever, we'll work you up. We'll keep working you up. But I can now steer that. And so now I have business process that's moving along with my AI implementation in this example. And so, now I'm taking full capacity, advantage of what I have. Because I have all this foundation in place, I can take advantage of all these things that all tie together. How do I scale this?
So I think a lot of people don't realize, and I want to talk about this for a few minutes, what are the tools that are already available to them? Almost no extra cost, that are sitting in their Microsoft 365 tenant. When you look at a Microsoft 365 tenant and you think, there's like 15 or 20 applications that come with Microsoft 365, right? Most companies don't even realize all these tools that they have advantage, but there is ChatGPT essentially sitting inside of Microsoft 365 right now, available at almost no additional cost if you use the Microsoft Co-Studio, pay per use, right? And you just pay for what you use. So let's talk about an example that I've seen out there, and what are some of the pros and cons to having this internal. But one that's always brought up is, hey, we need to have some sort of a guideline answer desk or a decision desk, because our loan officers are spending way too much time working with people that don't qualify, but they keep working with them because they can't get an answer from the decision desk on something. So give me some examples of how you might solve that problem with Microsoft 365.
Yeah, and so you mentioned guidelines. They're huge. They're complicated.
thousands of pages.
Well,
Fannie and Freddie, they put these PDFs that are like
maybe there's investor
huge
overlays because of the this type of business you're doing.
Right.
Well, that's just a perfect thing that AI is really good at. You know, scan all this material and summarize it for me.
Right.
And so I can now train that agent. And in your example you just mentioned, Microsoft's done a good job of embedding ChatGPT, Copilot right into the frameworks, and like I say,
so you could be
available to you
on Teams, and you have a little
integrated right
loan
there.
Agent sitting right there in Microsoft Teams.
And I have that question, and now I can just boom, I just ask it. I can narrate it. I can type it in, depending on whatever I like. I can have it, pre-staged. Is a little button I just click and ask me. What's the maximum DTI available in this scenario?
Right.
And it'll tell me, and it'll tell me why, and it'll tell me, what are compensating factors that I should be looking for in the file, like oh, he's got a super low LTV, he's got bank accounts or whatever.
And so if you accidentally, or not so accidentally, let's say on purpose, put the loan application that you copy and paste because they emailed you all of their information, and you throw it into the Microsoft Teams chat GPT version, right? Which is Copilot, still powered by ChatGPT, the latest version. You don't have the security risks that you have when you do it on your personal website version, right? Why?
I'm just kind of laughing because that actually happened.
Yeah.
People are always sending loan officers like, here's my tax returns, and it's over email. It's like, I better make darn sure that they're using a secure email system with a secure document transfer. And we, better to have that on your portal where they can use use it through your portal. But
that's why we got Document Guardian.
But to your point, then that then comes in and it ends up in the in the ChatGPT. Hey, let me have access to that file. And where do they put it? It goes off into some other storage area.
That's right.
And pretty soon it's like, I don't know.
And then that account gets hacked, and you get in the pattern, and you got a big problem. But you do it inside.
If it's
of Teams and Copilot with a good foundation, it's all governed. Big deal, actually.
Right.
Efficient way to do it.
So I know that,
get an answer back and write a letter to the borrower saying,
that's right,
you've been pre-qualified.
That's right. If I'm staying within the bounds of my tenancy, like my office building that I am in, and I've configured it so that the doors are locked. There's people checking access badges on the way in or the way out. Right. Which a lot of big companies have, and a lot of smaller ones, think it's a pain, so they don't, or they can't afford it. Windows are locked, etc. Whatever emergency exits. I mean, all these things are covered in your building, and so if it's in the building, it's safe. It's Fort Knox, so to speak.
And now, if 10% of your loan officers were buying personal versions of ChatGPT and doing this on their own,
you don't have that.
You don't have that problem anymore, and you have 100% of your loan officers now have this safe agent that can be productive for them, and they can be as productive as those other guys were being with their personal versions of ChatGPT.
Not only that,
so you got increase in productivity.
You can then look at how are people using this to be the most productive. There's always a most productive loan officer.
Yeah, love that. Yeah.
How can I take these guys and teach these other guys how to fish?
Yeah, that's right.
And because I have it all under my command, I can see the trail. I can make those examples readily available.
Yeah.
Plus, I can take those examples and periodically have compliance look at it and like, hey, what's going on here? Are we all good here? Is everything in bounds?
And not to mention, Fannie and Freddie are requiring, if you use an AI, to make a decision, you've got to prove how the AI came up with the decision and have the log of the questions that were asked and the references that were given and all of that.
And you better have that log available, right?
Already built in if you have the foundation to ChatGPT embedded in Teams.
That's right. That's a perfect illustration. And so now if both IT and compliance are working together, which is very critical relationship between those two, they both have an interest. They both have a stake in saying, we're monitoring this daily, monthly, and reporting back upstream to say, yep, we know that we have this. And when auditors come, we produce that information to them.
So not only are you lowering the friction to productivity, making the loan officers
Right.
more productive, and not just the 10% that are using a shadow version of ChatGPT, but the whole company. You're also handling compliance at the same time.
That's
both
right.
security and productivity.
That's right. Yeah. And two areas that CEOs don't necessarily like to talk about: IT and compliance, but you can't live without them, right?
Right.
You got to have them.
That's right.
And it sure comes in handy when auditors come knocking at the door, and you're able to show them, complete compliance. When they can just check boxes and walk away happy and give you an A on your report card, it feels good.
So when you think back of your career and all that you've done, why is it unrealistic for an internal IT team to take on this AI and the security stuff on their own?
There's a lot to manage.
But can't you just hire more IT people and they can get it done, right?
Maybe not. I mean, do you have the maturity and the skill sets? Do you have the process skill sets? And like you said, there's thousands of controls.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a combination. Maybe you're developing those skills in-house while you bring in some expertise from the outside to help set it up initially.
Yeah.
And then once it's all set up, we'll take it from there, which is actually a very good model.
Yeah.
We get it all set up. We did that. Here's a dashboard. You help us build out this dashboard for all the the various controls that.
So
are
having
important.
somebody come in and give you a template of all the ways to properly set this up is a good head start. Is what you're talking about.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And then from my experience, we set this up. And then we start running our own reports, and pretty soon we notice wow, we're really starting to drill down. We can now see the individuals who are not in compliance with this policy.
Yeah.
Why? What do you mean? We turned on multi-factor authentication. Probably one of the best things I ever did as a CIO was to make sure that we had multi-factor authentication. I
mean, 99% of hacks come from people who don't do that, and a lot of companies actually think they have it turned on, and they got a list of every user who has it turned on. Probably 10 to 15% of them actually don't have it turned on, even though the list that came from IT said they did.
Isn't that
so there's
amazing?
ways you've got to test it to see, is it really working?
That's
Not
right.
just does it flagged that it's on.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Right?
Imagine.
Because people cannot end up registering it and ignoring the answer.
Right.
No, I don't have time to set it up, and they can kick the can down the road, and
That's
then
right.
it ends up being one of those exceptions.
That's
or
right.
they're in a policy that because things weren't working, they troubleshot it, and some exception policy, and they were never removed from it.
That's right.
So it shows that they've got MFA turned on, but there's some IT policy that someone in the help desk put them on because they were calling in so often,
Right.
and then they forgot to take them off of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Or I'm traveling on vacation out of country, so I need access from
and then you forget
from
to
Latin
turn that off.
America.
Right.
And it's like,
Right.
oh yeah, I forgot to take you. We set that back 6 months later. All of a sudden I'm getting, pinged.
So your
from South
IT
America.
team, let's go back to, you said getting some help is worth it, right?
Yeah.
So when you guys got a software upgrade that you've got to go through, or some big new Microsoft feature, you guys usually get about one time to get experience installing that and getting it set up and configured correctly, right? Because once it's done for you, it's done and it's over.
Right.
You take your lessons learned, but having a team who does it all the time, what advantage of that is to you?
Well, the team is then focused on refinement.
Yeah.
And it becomes much easier.
Yeah.
And you're looking through, imagine having a dashboard where you can see exactly all these things set up and then which ones are being effective. Looking at how many times we blocked attacks from an outside, things coming in, access denied from an outside foreign country, for example.
Right.
It's like, well, that's suspicious. And then you go and report to the board at the end of the month. We had 586 of those blocked last month, and their eyebrows like, what?
Yeah.
It's like, we could have potentially been hacked, but we stopped them all.
Yeah.
Because it's always too late once you've been hacked, and then I really wish we were doing so. Now you're reacting and you're cleaning up and you're mopping up a mess, and oh my gosh, that takes a lot of time.
Yep.
The mop up, and then you're responsible for reporting that upstream to Fannie, Freddie, and investors, and it's a mess.
Yeah.
But if I can control that and monitor that, and I love being able to bring reports. I mean, I know I used to have guys looking at this every day, and we would internally look at our stats and make sure that we're always chipping away, improving,
Right.
improving. But when I can go to the C-suite and in monthly meetings and show them graphically, with a dashboard view, an executive summary of here's exactly where we stand, here's exactly what's going on out there, and they can ask questions like, well, how come that department right there has so many violations, I'll call them policy violations,
Yeah.
outstanding.
Right.
Well, we've tried to clean them up, but we're not getting a lot of cooperation. Oh, thanks for bringing that to our attention.
Right.
And
that's a real risk that could end up costing the whole company. Yeah.
And ultimately, compliance and IT are the two areas that they're necessary evil, so to speak. I mean,
Right.
you've got to have them, but no one really likes to. If you're in production or in operations, you don't want to spend a lot of time worrying about compliance and IT. You just want them to work. You want them to be available. You want them to have quick answers. But they're a backbone that keeps your business in business. And so imagine having a dashboard that shows you exactly where everything is at. It's their responsibility as executives to make sure that those things are done. They feel very secure. At
So
the
you
end of the
put it
day,
in plain English language.
Yeah.
What the security issue is. I have X number of people who don't have MFA turned on. Here's the actual list of the people. Here's how often they log into your system. And now you can take action, hold people accountable.
You can show them an executive dashboard and you can demonstrate, look, here's how we drill down into it. And I'll demonstrate a drill down capacity. And you see this number here? Doesn't look very good. Let's drill down and see where that is. And I'll do it once for them and they'll go, and they'll be, wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Well, they don't want to drill down on it every month, but they know that you are.
Right.
And so they have a level of confidence. When they see this, they see then a trend and improvement month to month.
Yep.
They can see trend lines and say, our security score, because we had scores.
Yep.
You can add all these things up and assign point values. And Microsoft did this. And and that's, by the way, that was a great thing that when we worked with Microsoft is you're leveraging their expertise across thousands of companies and developing these sort of tools and learning about the latest hacks and things that are going out there. And then quickly their white hat team puts up barriers to it.
Right.
And so you're leveraging all that. So then once we have these tools in place, then we can then utilize them, and we've always got the cutting edge, things that we would never be able to develop. But once we bring it in, back to your earlier question about now my IT team can maintain it.
Right.
They can then have governance that we talked about, and it's state-of-the-art governance. It's not like something that we just threw together. This is the latest products
you
being
had
offered.
a team of experts who do this all the time, come up with the standard and add to it for your company, and then you guys monitor and maintain it. And then the feedback loop, which is really the Guardian Insights dashboard that we provide. If you buy a license from Microsoft and you buy it through us, you get Guardian Insights for free, same price, but those sort of reports give you that feedback loop that you can use to inform the executive team, hold your IT people accountable, and a real easy way to say, hey, here are the 12 things that are going to cause a breach. And if we monitor those and do those, our chances of breach go down 99%. Right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And so those are the sort of tools that you need to keep things running smooth and the accountability you need.
And so you can sleep at night, so to speak, as an executive. You know the house is in order. And then you can focus on implementing these great new tools. Yep. You can implement with confidence, knowing that your security is covered as you roll these things out. You can focus on, how do I get the most efficiency out of this new tool? How do I scale it quickly? How do I get adoption from my users as I train them up? because you're constantly changing your business model. The regulatory environment is changing, the products are changing, the competition is changing, and you're constantly changing. And so there's always something to do. There's always a project to keep up with it and improve.
All right, so if you got an executive member and they take only one thing away from this conversation today, what would it be? What do you think it would be?
I think they already know that they need to implement these new tools to stay competitive.
Right.
So the question then becomes for them, how do I do it right? How can I do it fast and get the biggest bang for my buck and not go down some tragic rabbit hole of problems that I've seen in other rollouts from past history. And so I think what we've emphasized is making sure your house is in order, making sure you're building on a solid foundation. You're building in a tenancy that's secure. You're building with operational policy rules that are in place to control access points, to control where information is stored and who has access to it. You're authorizing people with their identities when they come into the system, that who's in your system. Who's in your house. We use the building example. It's in the house, but everything in the house is secure. And so you're good with that. So someone leaves, their access, and they're terminated, for example, their access is no longer, it's cut off that day, not, someone discovers it 6 months later, and in the meantime, that guy had access to your information. And so you're mindful that AI is a multiplier. It's working so much faster than humans. And it's so easy to get confidential information, personal identifiable information, income information, tax returns, etc., that you're responsible for guarding. It's so easy to lose control of those if you don't have these things in. But if you have it all in a secure tenancy and you have this as part of just your normal operations, with confidence, you can start implementing these tools. You can leverage them, and the lessons learned through your pilot programs or through your STAR loan officers, your STAR branches, STAR underwriters, whoever they are, using the tools and process, and then you can scale it. And you can do it continually with feedback to monitor it, to make sure that everything is working properly, and you're making adjustments as you go. So it all starts with making sure that you're building on a solid foundation. And so I think that's an area that's overlooked. Everyone wants the fruit of the tree, but they don't want to plant the tree in a nice, big enough pot with good soil. They don't want to have the roots established first to make sure that that's a good, healthy tree before it bears fruit.
Okay, so from a practical standpoint, I want to bring it back to this. One of the first things that they can do to achieve all those things that you were just talking about is get an assessment. Get an AI readiness, a security foundation assessment, and ABT offers that. And all you have to do is say, hey, raise my hand, I want an assessment.
I think
and you get a report card back basically saying, here's my grade in all of these areas. And are we ready to do AI? What would happen if we started turning on these agents?
That would be a great starting point. And I think those assessments they're not costly. And they're very much worth the investment.
And they're fast.
They're fast. Yeah, you get and
you get to kind of experience that Guardian Insights report that you might be able to use later down the road. We'll actually turn it on for you. You can see, am I ready for AI? What other security issues might I have in my tenancy? And it doesn't require any work on your IT department to do anything. We're a tier 1 Microsoft CSP, so all you have to do is approve the access, and then we'll get all the data out of your tenant and give you this assessment, and you can figure out, am I ready for this AI journey? And you might find a few things to clean up on your security side.
It could be only a handful of things. It could be like, say, 5 things, and maybe they're not that big of a deal to clean up.
That's right.
And you'll be better off on several fronts, not just your AI journey. Other compliance.
And there's no obligation. Like, you can do it. Just you want to find out what it is. We'll give it to you for free. Do a quick assessment, and if that is useful, then you might think it might be useful to have this report regularly and set up a weekly meeting to kind of review it and see. how many risks do I have? And then as you turn on AI agents inside your environment, you might be like, hey, let's monitor all of this.
I think most CIOs and CEOs, it would be eye-opening for them to say, oh, I had no idea.
What is my real grade, right?
I had no idea that we had that exposure, or I had no idea that we could see that much information. I remember when we first set this up, I was blown away by what I didn't know. What I didn't know.
Or you thought you knew, and you thought all of these experts you had understood, but they didn't have enough experience to find the little crack in the...
and lock down the security perimeter. Which we did, and we made over several years. We went with like a 5-year project of it. But we went in very fast in the first steps. I think that's what we're focused on here. But then we just kept improving. And so there's a lot that can be done, especially, I used to call it, being on the rails. If you can keep everyone back to the assembly line model, if you're on the rails, things are going to go smoothly. Because you control the traffic on the you have monitor and health checks all along the way, quality controls, feedback loops and such. But if you have a rogue agent going off the rails, you don't know. First of all, you got to find that guy, understand what the heck he did, and then go mop up after him a lot of times. So if you can stay with on the rails, and I think what you just described with the security check is a good way of making sure that I have a process that's secure, that's being monitored, that controls the flow of information and the access to information within my organization, and I can stay, quote, on the rails if I stay within that. And then it also gives me that tool, that daily, weekly, monthly report that allows me
feedback loop with action items
to make sure that I continue and I'm a continually improving, because I can guarantee you there is always somebody nudging you off the rails. There's always something happening, and you need to stay. You need.
Well,
that
it also
governance.
involves the executive team, right? And so the executive team can now look at this Guardian Insights report and really understand what the risks are. Talk to them, hold the IT team accountable. And the IT people actually like being held accountable, because then they can see the executives see the value they're adding. And why they're spending so much time and money and effort on blocking these holes that exist, and why it's a moving target, because you close them all up once and you're not done, because something changes in the environment and you got to go close it back up again.
That's
and it's an ongoing tool,
And I can demonstrate value added for the budget expended.
That's right.
Especially if I've got reports that said I got 500 some odd attacks, from the perimeter, and we stopped. I can show these policies kicked in and we stopped that. And so in their minds, it's like, oh wow, if that had happened, I could have been put out of business for several days. Let's just call it $1 million a day of lost operational revenues. Let's call it reputational loss. Let's call it regulatory loss and embarrassment. I saved myself a lot of heartache, and so they can see a return on investment and appreciate, wow, we've made a good move in protecting the company and the company's reputation and its information and its assets. And they can speak confidently. Even secondary market guys talking to an investor, and they're sending an auditor in, they can say, oh yeah, we have that. Compliance is doing their job, IT is doing their job, our information is secure. These controls are in place, and they can give that attestation to those investors, and that speaks volumes. When you have that investors coming in and like, oh yeah, we know these guys, they're a good account. We trust them. That feels great. And not only that, you get better business with these guys. You'll get a lot of perks, if you will, benefits.
All right, well, thanks for taking the time today to go over this. It's been fun talking about it. And I think the big takeaways are the AI journey is going to be fun. It can be super productive, but it's got its pitfalls. And we've seen the movie before, It's just happening a lot faster now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a journey. I mean, you really do have to take the journey.
You do.
So
If
why
you want to
not-
stay in business?
Yeah, yeah. Well, would you go off on the cross country trek without first putting enough water in your pack,
Right.
or
That's
preparing,
right.
and
Yeah.
being ready for the elements and the exposure?
Yeah.
Be ready for the dangers involved and prepare for them, so you have that foundation, and then you're going to reap benefits from it. These are fabulous tools. I mean, but they're also dangerous if they're not
Right.
used correctly.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting. All right.
All
Thanks
right.
very much, Jim.
Yeah. Thank you.